Welcome back to the King's Corner, the place for all things Bethesda. I am the KingFanMan with another Fallout 76 Scary Places. But before we get into that, if you love Fallout, the Elder Scrolls, and Starfield, and you're not subscribed yet to the KingFanMan channel, why not? That's all I talk about here, so go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Deep in the Appalachian Mountains sits a beautiful, pristine lake. On its surface, a picture of peace and serenity. Summerville Lake, the jewel of West Virginia that draws thousands each year to its crystal clear waters. But beneath the water, a secret lies buried. Before the waters of Summerville Lake were filled, in the beautiful Gauley Valley in Nichols County, near a small stream, McKees Creek, which flowed into the Gauley River, was a gorgeous spot to settle, and that's exactly what the Gadd family thought. In the early 1800s, the Gadd family set up a farm, a thriving farm in this rich valley, and it wasn't long before other families, names like the McCutcheons, the Roberts, the Backuses, became pillars of the community. They also moved into the valley, partly because of the beautiful setting, partly because of the abundance of fresh water from the creek and nearby river, and partly because of the soil so close to the river was very fertile. But part of the reason had to be, as well, the Gadd family themselves. In the rugged frontier, there was safety in numbers. James Gadd, the head of the family for whom the town is named, was born in Virginia in 1808. He moved his family here in 1840, laying the groundwork for a community rooted in working the land. Life in Gadd was a testament to the rugged Appalachian resilience, carving out a simple existence. As the community grew and more families moved into the area, a very tight-knit town arose with homesteads and farms, churches, a small school, and a general store that sold everything from kerosene and farming supplies to materials to make homemade soap and a small assortment of staple foods. Neighbors helped one another. The doors in town didn't have locks, and every member of the community had their own job and responsibility, and they truly depended on one another to survive and thrive. It was a community born from the land itself, its fortunes tied to the rhythms of the seasons and the soil. Children spent their summers playing in the cool creek with their laughter echoing through the hollows. Their winters were spent in that one-room schoolhouse. In the early 1900s, the small town built a sawmill, which helped open up more of the land in the forested area, and new families were provided wood for houses. The little general store grew in size and was operated for many years by Arthur Backus and his wife. This store became the beating heart of the town, a place for friends to gather and swap stories, and for the ladies to meet for all-night molasses making, and even some rare all-night sing-alongs. The town grew so much that in the early 1900s, a sister town was established in 1907 by Joseph Sparks. Just down the valley from Gadd was the town of Sparks. Though a little smaller than Gadd, it thrived as well. Joseph Sparks was a merchant, so the town of Sparks, much like Gadd, centered around the general store. These two small towns were really the same community, all located in the same valley, along the same little creek. They were very tight-knit, all depending on and helping one another. Their whole lives centered around family, faith, community, and of course, the land. Life in this valley stayed very much the same from its founding all the way through the 1950s. They lived an isolated and hard but truly a peaceful life. However, in 1960, a new story began to be written, not in ink, but in concrete. And this new story would change Gadd and its people forever. Unknown by the people of Gadd, in 1938, a major piece of new federal legislation was passed called the Flood Control Act. Once signed into law by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, it gave the U.S. government the authority to take one's land and build dams and levees nationwide. wherever it saw a need. This legislation was a direct response to a series of catastrophic floods in the late 1920s and early 1930s. This new law wouldn't affect the people of Gad for another 2 decades. But in late 1959, Senator Jennings Randolph of West Virginia, who was the chairman of the Senate Committee on Public Works, along with fellow West Virginia Senator Robert C. Byrd, pressed Congress, and ultimately President Lyndon B. Johnson purchased, or rather seized, the land of Gad and turned the area into a new lake. The people of Gad were given an immediate notice to leave their homes, their farms, their businesses, their churches, their schools, and the government under the Fifth Amendment was legally required to pay the residents just compensation, which was supposed to be a fair market value. However, many residents refused because what the government was offering was as low as 10 cents on the dollar compared to similar property elsewhere. A large portion of Gad and Sparks residents refused to leave their homes. However, because the project was authorized by the federal government, the government used eminent domain, a law that gives the government the right to seize your land if they deem it necessary. It literally was a mass exodus of this long-time, close-knit community. They were forced to leave everything they knew and loved. And it was not just the houses, the schools, the churches, and the stores. Gad and Sparks also had numerous cemeteries, both public and family plots. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers began quickly removing many of the bodies and transporting them to other locations. Both Gad and Sparks public graveyards were emptied along with the Baptist and Methodist churches. Several family plots were moved as well. Hundreds of bodies were moved from their resting spots in a frenzy to try and avoid the oncoming waters. Even though the U.S. government states that all recognized graves were moved, the locals tell a much different story. The older the grave, the harder it was to find the exact location of the plot. In the 19th century, graves in Gad were only marked by fieldstones or wooden crosses. Many of these were gone by the time of this move. The graves were left behind and covered by the lake. There is no exact number known of how many graves were left, but it is safe to say those numbers too were in the hundreds. So families were forced to leave it all, their whole life, home, church, school, job, and even loved ones, all forced to leave it all behind. This was obviously devastating for the people of Gad and Sparks.
My name is Bonnie King Orcutt, and I lived at Gad, which is under lots of water right now down at the boat marina.
We had a beautiful place over at Battle Runs where our home was at. Those sets of grandparents had to leave, and my aunts and uncles and cousins, and 150 homes that were taken, maybe more than that.
I believe I was 20 years old whenever we found out. We were saddened in one way because my parents still lived there and they kind of hated to give the place up.
But no one got rich. No one got what their place was really worth.
The Summerville Dam took less than 5 years to build, so the families weren't given long at all to not only move out, but to find new homes, jobs, and communities. The dam was finished and dedicated by President Lyndon B. Johnson on September the 3rd, 1966. The dam stands almost 400 feet tall and is the second largest rock-filled dam in the eastern United States. The dam's original name was Gad in honor of the sunken town beneath its waves. However, officials balked at the idea of calling it Gad Dam. So instead, they decided to use the next closest town of Summerville. Summerville Lake today is a beautiful lake covering over 60 miles of shoreline and hosts a variety of activities, including great fishing, skiing, and some of the best freshwater scuba diving anywhere because of the crystal clear water with visibility from 20 to 45 feet, according to the area and time of year. In fact, people come from all over to dive in its crystal clear waters. The lake offers underwater caves, sheer rock walls with depths to almost 400 feet, and of course, one of its biggest underwater draws is the submerged town of Gad. Yes, even today, remnants of Gad can still be seen and visited if you want to suit up in scuba gear. Divers can descend into the watery stillness, gliding over the old foundations and overgrown roads. Many divers have reported entire houses remaining. The clear water of Summerville Lake can be beautiful, but its clarity can also be unnerving, revealing the ghostly shape of the past that refuses to be forgotten. Countless divers report a strange heaviness around the Gad area, and many say they have an overwhelming feeling of being watched from both above and below the waters. Numerous strange reports come from divers and fishermen as well. In 1985, a local dive master was leading a class of lesser experienced divers through some of the remnants of Gad. Specifically, they were looking for one of the old church buildings that was supposed to be mostly intact. The dive master reported when he got to around the 40-foot depth, he noticed his compass spinning wildly out of control, just before an overwhelming feeling of dread forced he and his class back to the surface. This was a seasoned diver who had many years of experience, and he said he had never felt anything like that before. Many say what people are seeing and experiencing are the spirits of those that were left behind, still guarding their old town and still angry their loved ones were sent away. Is this just an old ghost story? Or could there really be spirits dwelling in Gad? Divers and even rangers alike have reported this eerie evidence of underwater habitation. Many have claimed to have seen houses in near perfect condition, and when explored closer, they report seeing floral curtains that look new and even kitchens that almost appear clean and ready for a meal. These reports have been so frequent, it has led to a nickname, the Maids of Gad, as if there are still maids working to keep the houses clean. Even more chilling, there have been numerous reports of full apparitions being seen, both on the surface of the water and even several under the water. Two fishermen, while fishing the Gad area in 1992, reported seeing a figure under the water with what they called a lantern in his hand. Obviously, they got out of there very quick. There has also been several reports of phantom sounds being heard in this area of the lake, distant cries, and even laughter, along with many reporting the sound of a bell coming from beneath the water. Maybe the creepiest report was from a couple who went for a nighttime boat ride, and while they were floating near the Gad area of the lake was calm as glass, and as the boat gently sat in the water, the couple said they all of a sudden heard loud, frantic knocking coming from beneath the hull of their boat. After returning to the marina, they were as white as ghosts and visibly shaking. Many campers have also reported hearing strange sounds deep into the night. Not ghostly weeping, but sounds and echoes from the past. It's as if the valley itself recorded the daily soundtrack of life in Gad, and when the right conditions rise, it plays back those echoes of a life long gone. A local fisherman told a story of a foggy morning on the lake and seeing a figure dressed in old-fashioned clothes standing in the middle of the lake. As he creeped closer to see if someone might be in need, the figure slowly vanished from sight. For all the progress and recreation that the lake provides, it also serves as a tomb for a way of life, a final resting place for a tight-knit community forced into the cold, silent depths. This is the truth of Gad, a place gone but not forgotten, a community whose legacy and restless spirits refuse to be entirely washed away. The past isn't always buried. Sometimes it waits just beneath the surface, a cold, wet hand reaching up from the depths, reminding us of what was lost. The lake is a monument not just to flood control, but to a silent tragedy, a final watery grave for a town that only wanted to be left in peace. Its calm surface is a thin veil covering a history of loss, and not only a town lost to the waves, but also the spirits that have never left. So next time you see that beautiful, clear water, be sure and remember what lies just beneath. Gad, the town that even the deepest waters couldn't fully wash away.